Ugh, it's just a lot
I
of
know.
coughing. Nick is over here like, calm down, calm down.
I know. I'm it's me, dude.
It's not you, it's the camera. That's the third party here.
I get it. I get it. But also at the end of the day, it's just you having a conversation with me, and you have once made me be butt ass naked at Garden of the Gods in the middle of fall or like early spring. All I know is it was cold.
It was
Um,
cold.
and there was a third party there too, also a camera. So I think that you being
Oh,
in the
that's so
comfort of your
funny.
home, fully dressed, is probably going to be significantly less
uh,
terrifying, right?
the photos are quiet and get edited, but yes, you're right. There's a different element
I
there.
had to change in a parking lot, Brielle, and it was very cold. And you put me in a lace dress that was see through, so I wasn't warm ever.
I was
And
like, this will make you feel warmer.
no, no, it did not. But did I
Yeah,
feel
I do remember.
beautiful? Yes, I loved it. Um,
Good.
okay, so that's a fun intro. But hello, everyone. I'm Candace Estelle. I run the We're All Women publication. And today I'm going to be talking to professional photographer Breelle Hilsenrath. Hello, Breelle.
Hi.
Hi. So I think some people are going to catch on that I do know you previously. You weren't someone who was recommended to me or someone I found online.
Yeah.
I would think I've known you for 16 years probably.
Oh my gosh, I was gonna say 14, but it is probably 16.
Oh, well, you know what? I know how old you are.
Are you fact checking me right
No, no, I'm trying to think about it. I think, how about we meet in the middle and it's been 15 years.
now? Yes, it is somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's about then. Because that's how long I've
Hmm.
known others and I met you guys all at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
I know. It's fun being an adult and then doing math. It's weird. Um, okay, so like I said, you're a professional photographer. What
Mhm.
got you into that?
I happened to live next door to the high school photography teacher, and I needed an elective and thought that I'd get a really easy A. And that's how I learned film camera. My grandpa was a film photographer. And so I used his camera for that class, but it turns out it was not an easy A. I was like taking pictures on my way to school every day, and I'd get in trouble for not putting more thought into it. So the only reason I even got a B in that class is because of all the written exams.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's kind of crazy. I hated photography in class. I hated it. And then my sister was into pageantry at the time, and my parents were like, "Well, you know how to use a camera. Go out and take her pictures." Did not want to do it, but they ended up being decent for the time. And then a lot of kids were asking me to take their senior photos, and it just kept evolving through college. I started shooting weddings, and then now I pretty much exclusively shoot weddings.
Yeah, which is kind
So
of cool.
yeah.
Like
Hmm.
it's crazy to think that you kind of wanting to be lazy and get an easy A is now your career and has
Yeah.
been for over a decade.
Yeah. It's very weird. It's blessing in disguise, but it's super funny because I absolutely hated it. And now I wish I could go back to that class with the passion that I have for it and actually learn some more,
Yeah.
advanced. Yeah, I would love to like talk to my photography teacher and be in the dark room again. And I think that's really cool.
I mean, I do think you could go talk to the photography teacher because you do still live in the area.
I do. I do. I don't think he still teaches there, but
Oh, okay. I don't even know
yeah.
which teacher that would be. So,
Yeah.
because I did not take
I,
photography at that school, I took it at a different one. I went to three different high schools.
yeah, you did a lot of schools. That's true.
Yeah. So photography kind of fell into your lap and you were very specific. You said film photography or a film camera.
Mhm.
I know that you love to shoot on film, but with weddings, do
Mhm.
you shoot exclusively on film or do you also shoot digitally?
No, I also shoot digital just because there are still some capabilities that film cannot do. And there are times when digital is better and film is better. And then with that, there's a bunch of different film stocks and types of film cameras. Um, but film is just not as great in low light, even with a higher film stock. That's just true. So there are some limitations of using film. And so that's why, and also I don't know if it's fortunate or not. I was going to say unfortunately, but it's not always unfortunate. But there are um, unspoken rules that people want more photos. We're like in a digital age, of course. And so if I'm only shooting film, and there are some wedding photographers that I look up to that only shoot film, but then they're using flash a little bit more than I would be. Um, but we live in a digital age, and unfortunately, people want more and more and more. And so for me, it's bringing balance of quality and infusing some of that film in there, but also having the digital to be able to provide more and not, miss moments because I'm worried about I only have 32 shots per roll or whatever.
Okay.
So,
And
yeah.
then you said that some of the photographers you look up to use flash. Is that, do you literally mean the light on your camera or do you mean a Adobe flash?
No, no. So some of the photographers that I look up to use film exclusively,
Right.
but that means that means that they're having to use flash more throughout the day because film can only handle letting in a certain amount of ambient light.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I love the look of flash also, but there are a lot of times where I don't use any flash, and digital cameras are able to introduce a lot more light digitally,
Mm-hmm.
um, which allows for like more ambient light to come through even at night, and it just looks softer and just different than using flash. But yeah, I mean a physical flash on top of your camera.
Okay, so we mean light. Okay, good to know.
Light, yeah.
So I know that you do weddings, but is weddings what you want to photograph? Like overall?
Yes, yeah. And I also do love photographing portraits, especially of women. Just being a woman, I've always kind of fallen into that. So I definitely do some fashion and branding stuff on the side, some senior portraits. But I mean, I feel like such a cheeseball, but I love love and I love photographing that, and I love connections and seeing families together on their day. And I just think there's something really sweet and cool about being in those intimate moments. And it's a celebration, it's happy, it's there are some sad moments in weddings too, which I really love. Just when people pass away and things like that, I think getting to just experience a full range of emotions with people, your subjects, is different than just fashion photography. There's like an added emotional element there, and I love that.
And how would you categorize or describe for someone without being able to show your photos? How would you describe how your photo style is? Because I would say it's definitely different than a lot of wedding photographers who do
Yeah.
these very crisp and clean and
Mhm.
cookie cutter,
Yeah.
photos.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily what you bring. So can you explain that?
Yeah, I thank you. We appreciate that. I think the one word that our couples use a lot that we've really honed in on is cinematic.
Mm-hmm.
So we do love like filmy textures and some of that ambient light. And a lot of photographers try to be light and airy or dark and moody, and I call us light and moody.
Mm-hmm.
We're like somewhere in the middle of those two because I don't use the same presets for every single um, shoot. And some people would say that you should, but for me, it's all about trying to shoot for the mood of the couple and also just the location that we're in. So I would say cinematic, light and moody, romantic. And we do try to have some sort of a documentary style, but also editorial. And I think a lot of people get stuck on just having one or the other. So they're either very posy or they're not giving any direction at all. And we try to do both of those things. So,
I would say that a good way to describe your photography would be like ethereal, right?
mhm.
It's like very dramatic and airy, but it has darker tones. Like
Yeah,
literal
yeah,
color tones, not just like it's scary photos, obviously, but
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's they kind of remind me of like photos from the 50s where color wasn't always, in the cameras. And so you have this like glamorous old Hollywood feel just to basically any photo you saw at that time. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. That's super fun.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that. And that is something I would say too is nostalgia. Like, when you're saying like he reminds you of the 50s, we do put a lot of texture into some of our photos with grains. And like I said, we shoot on film and digital. And so we are trying to like make it modern, but with some of that nostalgia in there.
And you keep saying we, so who's the other part of this?
That's true. I do say we. my partner Nick joined my business officially this year. So used to be Breelle Hilsenrath Photography, but now it's the D'Annunzios. And so yeah, I know that's his name. Um, so anyways, we've decided to try to have the two of us as much as possible. So that you get two photographers. And if you only need one photographer, then there's a possibility of adding on video as well. So that's been super fun, super different after running my own business for like the last 8 years, having somebody else that I have a sounding board, but also I can't just make as quick of adjustments as I'd like. It's definitely been different, but really, really fun.
Yeah, and why is he a part of this? Does he come from a photography background or a videography background like you, and that's one of the ways you met, or have you taught him how to do this?
Um, a little bit of both. We met at a wedding. He officiated for his best friends, and I was their photographer that they hired. Um, and I just really loved the friend group, and I happened to notice him and just struck up conversation. And I don't know, we just got to know each other through that. But through talking, he had actually, I didn't know this at the time, but he had gone to the Art Institute and spent some time studying film. And so he's always had an inherent passion for it. He got away from it for his day job. He wasn't really actively doing it, but he wanted to just hang out with me and see what I do day to day. And it was just really natural for us to be going to weddings together. I happened to have some extra cameras laying around, of course. And so I taught him how to do that. And then slowly we got into video. And I think it's become a passion again for him. And now we just decided to go into business together.
There you go. That's kind of nice.
Hmm. Yeah,
I
really
feel like
crazy.
it's very whirlwind, right? Like you meet this guy
Hmm.
at a wedding while you're shooting a wedding,
Yes,
and we've
yes,
got what, 3 weeks before I'll be at your wedding,
yes. Yeah,
which is
it's
very
crazy.
interesting. Um,
Hmm.
definitely happened and like definitely seems magical from someone on this end. But I
Hmm.
have a question for you. Who's taking the photos and film at your wedding?
Yeah, everyone's been asking that. So I have this friend Luke that I actually met in 2017 or 2016, one of the two. We went to I didn't know anyone, he didn't know anybody, and we happened to go to Salt Lake City to do a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically where just photographers in the area will bring in some people, do some education for you, and also you get to go out and take cool pictures. Well, I happened to drive, and so they needed some people in my car. And Luke decided to sit in the front seat with me, and we struck up conversation and have been friends ever since. He came out to visit me when I lived in the mountains multiple times. He comes to Denver once a year, and we all just kind of go out and hang out. So he's a very close friend of mine. And originally he was going to be a guest because we had this thing like we don't want anyone that we know working the wedding, but we just couldn't find anybody that again, I'm not a super comfortable on camera person, ironically. And so just someone that we felt comfortable with and trusted their work, that he could trust me and just, I'm like, whatever you want. And he just kind of asked us, like, would you want me to be your photographer? I still really want to do that. That feels like a gift from me to you. Obviously, we're paying for his services. I believe in paying for your friends. But he's like, this feels like something that I want to do for you. And we're like, well, we love your work. So Luke Payne photo, he's insanely incredible. Um, and so that'll be super fun.
And what's his vibe going to be like for the wedding? Is it also going to be this romantic and ethereal film quality or
So he will shoot on some film for us because he has actually the same film camera that I do. But no, he's a little bit darker and moodier. He definitely has more edge a little bit to his photos. And he's being super, this is not something that we would do for normal clients, but I just think it would be really fun to go in and play with our photos. So he's allowing me to edit my own photos if I want to. But I'm like, please still edit them because his work is insane. He shoots specifically for how he edits, but he's definitely got like, he's a little more whimsical, I would say, and like um darker tones. So he plays with a lot of low light lanterns, candlesticks, which is exactly what we're having at our wedding. So and a lot of it's going to be darker since the sun goes down so early in October.
yeah.
So I don't know, he'll do amazing. I look up to his photography a lot. He's got like 18,000 followers. I feel like he should have 20,000 more right now. Um, he's really talented and just the sweetest person. Like I'm so excited to see him actually.
Yeah, it's going to
So,
be really great.
mhm.
So weddings, which you're about to have, are like a big celebration, and a lot of family comes in and is together. But I do know that maybe some of your family members won't be there because they can't be.
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah.
want to talk about that? And is there any way that you're honoring the ones that can't appear?
Yes, kind of. I mean, the unfortunate thing is like ironically, we don't have that many photos of just growing up and things like that. Which is so sad. And it's also part of something that the when people die, the first thing you do is go look for photos. It's really strange, but that is what we do. And I kind of realized that I don't have that many. And so also having shot weddings, it's crazy to me how many people um will message me and be like, "Hey, my uncle passed away, and if you have any photos, we don't care if they're good. If you have any photos of him, like we would love those." And so, um, I don't know. I just think that's like a crazy aspect of weddings and something that we don't take lightly. Um, but unfortunately, at our wedding, I don't have that many photos to be like putting out a big memory table or something like that. But for my Appa, which was Appa means dad in Korean, but he was my stepdad. He raised me from the time I was 2 until I was, ready to go to college. He died 6 years ago now. Sorry, my dog is coming over here. Lucy, sorry. He died about 6 years ago. He obviously won't be able to make it. I have his tux. I happen to have his old tuxedo. And so I'm considering doing something like if I walk down the aisle, holding it and folding it up and putting it on the chair or hanging it on the back of the chair for him and reserving it in the front row. My uncle just recently passed and he won't be there, which is super sad, but I haven't fully thought of what to do for him yet. I think we're planning on using some figs and like fresh fruits in our design, and he happens to have a fig tree, so I was going to see if we could like clear out the tree this year and use those in our decor. And I think it'd be something only I know, but it makes me happy. And I feel like I just like the subtle ways of honoring people at the wedding.
Well, yeah, and I think honoring someone that you've lost, it's about you. So it should
Hmm.
be personal and for you. Now, you are
Yeah.
doing an October wedding, so may I recommend that you put chicken wire in that tuxedo and then you just shape it like he's in there and then you dance with a ghost. And that would be terrifying. It's perfectly on theme for October
I don't know why I didn't think of this already. Yes,
because
you
it's
may recommend it.
terrifying. Um,
It is in the bank right now.
there you
We'll
go.
be considering it.
Or you could have the tux holding the welcome sign, but like with the chicken wire so that it's
Oh
filled
my
out.
gosh.
Just really creepy ideas to go along with
When
it.
you get here, I will let you do it. But yes, deal. Done.
But no,
If you can pull it off, it's happening.
I mean, I could do it. It wouldn't be hard.
I bet you could. I could not.
But I think though you are very fun and you're very silly, you don't necessarily have that same sense of humor for like your wedding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do love the idea of like having his tux have its own seat.
Hmm.
Like I think that's really, really special and
Yeah.
a really good idea. And then maybe having, like for an actual real recommendation, maybe doing a boutonniere, like of fresh flowers to go into
Yeah.
the jacket or
That'd be
something like
sweet.
that.
That's cute. That's
That
a
way
good
he's a
idea.
part of it. I don't know what your flowers are, what you want to do, but I think that would be nice.
Yeah,
And
that's cute.
so
Hmm.
he's your stepdad. Are you in contact with or know about your biological dad?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So my biological dad is still around. Thankfully. He lives in New Jersey, so he just didn't have that same opportunity to raise me to the extent that my Appa did. So that's that. I love him a lot. I don't think I have that same, unfortunately, we just don't have that same exact bond, but I've really grown to appreciate and understand like what he was up against living in a completely different state being a single man most of that time, just supporting himself and having to fly us in and out, um, a couple times a year. I think the older I've gotten, the more that I've appreciated that and understood that. We definitely have different personalities than the other, I think. And so it's sometimes, that it's like that. But um yeah, I mean he's made every effort he could to be around in my life, which I appreciate. And so yeah, he'll definitely be at the wedding. I think he and my mom might be walking me down the aisle if I can fit three people down it. um and so yeah, I mean he'll be there.
Yeah, which is
So
great. And so he's
yes, yeah.
in New Jersey and you're in the middle of the
Hmm.
country.
Yes.
Did he used to live in Colorado and then he went somewhere else, or you guys are who did the moving?
We moved when we were two. My mom and dad got divorced. My brother was 6, and then my sister and I were around 2, 1.5 or 2. And then she moved to Colorado, met Appa, and then they got married pretty quickly after, and we grew up here. So,
And why did she choose Colorado?
I think because her job that she was with also had like that was the other state that it was in, like really big footprint
Mm-hmm.
was here in Denver. Um, and then she's still with that company today. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So, got some
Hmm.
family history. We talked a
Yes.
little bit about Nick, which is
Hmm.
nice. And the
My
fact,
favorite subject.
yes, I'm aware. And the fact that, like you're getting married, all of this is going on, and you've got a lot happening right now, right? Because it's also the tail end of wedding season. So you've been
Mhm.
incredibly busy while planning your own wedding and running your own company, which is already
Yeah.
incredible. I assume that you're pretty happy still, though, with being your own boss and running your own company.
Yeah. Love
Yeah,
it.
best
Yep.
best choice.
Yes.
It'll be second best choice after you marry Nick, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I would love to dive in a little bit more to like who you are physically, because I know that like me, you have an autoimmune disease.
Hmm.
Do you want to share what that is?
Yeah. And I mean, we are still kind of trying to diagnose that. The great thing is I'm getting on Nick's insurance after we get married, and he's got really great insurance.
Mm-hmm.
I've visited with a few different doctors that all kind of speculate some stuff and are just having a really hard time actually diagnosing through like blood work and all of that. They're seeing the symptoms, but they're just not able to figure out the full cause. I've got some history, like based on my sister and my mom, of what we think is happening. But unfortunately, without like really great insurance, it's super expensive on my own. We just haven't been able to dive into it as much as like we would like to. And then a lot of the treatments, some of it is hormone related, and that's been very stressful just because um, based on my age and being a woman and maybe having children and maybe not having children, they don't want to treat, and some doctors will treat you. And just finding consistency in that has been really hard. But basically, the things I struggle with are insane chronic migraines, nausea, intense cramping. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, really, I think the migraines and the nausea have ramped up lately to where I'm like throwing up pretty often and lightheaded and dizzy and have to just immediately lay down for no reason. And mornings are very difficult to get up just because, pain every morning pretty much. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
What then, based off of your sister and your mother, do you think this could be?
So we're looking at Hashimoto's, endometriosis,
Okay.
um, some of those kinds of things. And then we definitely have. I've been tested, and so have they. And it's odd. I've got low testosterone and low estrogen, which I always thought the science on that was that if one was low, the other one was high. Apparently, they can just both be low. So that affects energy levels and your body's ability to regenerate cells and all kinds of things. So, um,
And how long have you been dealing with these symptoms?
I think I've been dealing with them like even hair loss is one of the symptoms. I have extensions, so you wouldn't know it, but it is something that I struggle with and have been struggling with. And so I think actually I've been struggling with these symptoms a lot longer than I realized.
Hmm.
But I would say over the last 3.5 years, they've gotten to a point where it's daily. But I can remember like going to my kindergarten teacher and telling her my brain hurts, and it was a full migraine. She's like, "No, you have a headache." But now I can look back and be like, that is the earliest I remember having my first migraine. So I mean, I guess as long as I can remember.
And I know that this sounds maybe silly, but
Mhm.
what's the difference between a migraine then and a headache?
I think migraines are like a lot deeper. Like a headache feels kind of surface, but the migraines also, for me, migraines have like sometimes tunnel vision. There's like other things associated with it. So spots of light, the dizziness, the nausea. I don't think a normal headache is giving you other symptoms.
Okay.
And also with migraines, I feel like specifically I have like more chronic ones.
Hmm.
And so it's hard because if you have a lot of triggers for them. So it's like I have to make a decision that always stresses me out if like, do I treat the migraine or not? Because if you take too much medicine, then you can end up triggering migraines because you're dependent on them. But if you don't, then you have the symptoms and you can get a migraine because you're having swelling and inflammation and all of that stuff in your brain or your sinus cavities or wherever it may be that's causing them.
Okay.
Lucy, sorry, my dog's being crazy.
I loved
Stop.
it. It's great. Yesterday I was like pre-filming one of the I guest on a podcast yesterday, and I was pre-filming, and I used to have a picture right here, and my cat
Uh-huh.
came through and ripped everything down behind me and broke my picture frame. So
I
I
love it.
I
That's so
understand
funny.
it. And now he's just laying over there on the staircase acting like he's never done anything wrong in his life. And
That's so great.
honestly, he's gaslighting me enough that I'm not convinced he has done anything wrong ever. There's proof. I have a memory, but he's just like, "No, mom, I'm so cute. It's never
You're
happened.
like, oh yeah, I forgot already. It's fine.
It's fine."
He
Um
never gets zoomies like that, so it's really, really weird.
Well, it's probably also because you're talking literally about from
True.
one topic to another that's maybe not so fun, and she can probably
True.
sense
She
that.
feels it. Yeah.
And I'm
Sure.
sorry for bringing up stuff that's not so fun, but I think it's very important that as women we talk about not only the things that bring us joy and the work we get to do and the love we get to have, but also some of the
Yeah.
things that get in the way of fully getting to enjoy those, because
Hmm.
an autoimmune disease is it sounds very scary. I think once you have one, depending on the one you have, you kind of are just like, all right, and how do I live my life, Um,
Yeah.
but I think what's worse, and something you said, and I'd love to dive into a little more, is you said, certain doctors won't even treat me based off of whether or not I want children or how that wants to go. And I think that's a huge issue in women's healthcare, aside from the fact that we're just underserved as a demographic. Um, but it sounds like some people are dictating what they'll even do to help you based on a child that does not exist and may never exist. So, do you want to talk
Correct.
about that?
Yeah, and it is also hard for me because I do appreciate the perspective of what will this do if I have children, but that first off, there's not even really research on that saying that it's positive or negatively affects you. Um, my thing is having some sort of hormone issues that they can actually identify on lab work and they won't treat me for, and is not covered by health insurance, regardless, um, is kind of a catch 22 because even if I end up wanting children with the way that I feel and the way that my hormones are, pregnancy is terrifying to me because I'm not sure what that's going to look like health wise. And Nick also agrees with that. That it's like, okay, well, at what point are we jeopardizing you if we want to start a family? How uncomfortable is it going to be for you? Can you work when you're pregnant? I don't want to like not work for an entire wedding season. That would, I mean, that's I just don't want to do that. Um, so I think that I can understand and appreciate the perspective of wanting me to be healthy enough to have children, but I already feel that I am not. And so that's where I don't fully agree with that perspective of just in case you want children, we're not going to do this. No one had a problem giving me birth control at 16 years old for acne,
Yeah.
and I feel like a lot of stuff, I got off of birth control 4 years ago just to try to regulate my hormones. Um, and it's been interesting because I think that's when I started learning like stuff is not right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I don't know. I struggle with the philosophies behind all of that stuff.
I struggle with it a lot too. I'm not someone who wants children right now. I'm not in any danger to accidentally have a child. There's no one hanging out with me. But it's one of those things where I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever have a child, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um but because I also don't know that I never would, I'm not going to make a
Right.
decision. But if it
Right.
had to do with my health, I would do what's best for me because I am a
Hmm.
person who's already here. I am not a
Yes.
hypothetical thing that does not actually exist. And
Right.
everyone, they try to justify telling us what to do with our bodies by being like, but it's a baby. No, it's a
It's not.
concept. It's a
Yeah.
concept right
Yes.
now,
Yes. Yeah.
and so I don't have my autoimmune issue is skin related, which is
Mm.
actually a little bananas because skin is like the largest organ in your body. um
Yeah.
and so it affects me, and it has in the past so significantly that like I'll be in so much pain sometimes that I can't stand up.
Wow.
um And if that was the case, but in my uterus, and I could say,
Mhm.
rip that out now so I don't have to feel this pain, not a
You do it.
question. Not a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
And now, granted, the thing I go through is really, really painful. Um, and it's a full body experience in the worst way. But I can't imagine that being concentrated somewhere because if it's endometriosis or PCOS, which I'm not sure how different those two are, but like, why are you doing this? Why have you decided that the life that exists, that's here, that's looking at you, that's maybe crying,
Yeah.
because they're
Yeah.
in so much pain and they're basically debilitated already, has to have a
Yep.
child?
Yeah.
Because what kind
Yeah.
of life could you have after a child if something goes wrong? Or
Yes.
what happens if you're 5, 6 months along and it is going wrong and you have to then bear with the decision that it's you or the baby, but the baby's not old enough for it to ever be the baby?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to
Yeah.
deal with that type of
Trauma and
loss, which
right.
is
Yep.
incredibly traumatizing for your body, for your heart, for your brain. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like they think, no, it's because you might want a child one day. And I think more so it's like I'd love to be alive and healthy for that child.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I also
Yeah.
think that doctors forget that adoption is an option,
Mm-hmm.
and surrogacy, if you can afford it, is an option. Fostering is an option. Not having children is an option.
Right.
Um, Almost nothing gets me as heated as people being like, "You can't do that because what about this baby that doesn't exist? And you have a partner. You are getting married, you know."
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I'll
Yeah.
get that, and I don't have a partner. Because for my skin thing, before I figured out what it was, it took me about 4 years. I
Mm-hmm.
had to go to multiple different dermatologists. I had American healthcare, so it was horrible.
Yep.
And I kept going to different places, and mine's an allergic type feeling. So I'd take Benadryl to try to make myself feel better, um, which is really bad for your blood brain barrier.
Right.
It's to the point now where when I was finally diagnosed, the doctor said, please try not to take Benadryl for the rest of your life.
Oh my gosh.
And I was 24.
Wow.
And the medication that they have me on now, at one point during, because stress is a factor for mine. So at one point when I was super stressed out, um, my medication will stop working and they won't give me anything else because of how the healthcare system works where I am. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want to give me a different type of medication. So they just kept upping it. I was up to 7 pills a day at
Oh
one
my
point,
gosh.
just so that I
That's
could do
insane.
things like wear clothing. Because for me, it's like a touch thing. Like certain things, just touching me will set it off.
Wow.
randomly. It's very frustrating. And it was so disheartening for me to be like, this isn't enough, and then being like, we don't actually know enough about this. Sorry.
hmm And I do feel like that even to your point with medications, I don't feel like a lot of them have a history beyond 5, 7, 10 years. And then it's like, you're on this for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. Has anyone ever been on it for the rest of their lives? I'd like to know that.
Yeah, what's
And
the
so,
study here? Because, like
exactly.
you said, they gave you birth control at 16. They gave me birth control at 16 because I had cysts
Mhm.
on my ovaries. And so it was really
Yep.
painful. They're like, we'll give you birth control and it'll help you. And I'm still on that, and I have been now
Wow.
for a long time. And it's just kind
Yeah.
of what I'm used to. I tried to switch it and do other things. I just got really lucky that
Mhm.
the pill happens to be the thing that works best for me. But I can
Yeah.
tell you that at
Yeah.
one point they were like, well, you shouldn't be on the pill because we have new things now. And I was like,
hmm
okay. And they gave me Depo-Provera. And I got to have a period for 9 straight months.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yep.
Like
Because,
9 months, no break.
yep, it wasn't heavy. It was, I would say a day four type of situation
Yeah.
constantly, every day. Um,
Wow.
and it was one of those things where there was nothing I could do about it, except use a tampon, which I found out last year. I
Toxic.
think that
Yeah.
they had never tested actually on a human.
hmm
I don't use tampons, and I haven't for a couple years, but not even because of that. I stopped using them because I didn't think they were very eco friendly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think
yeah,
it's true.
I use a cup because of the eco friendliness. And then I think it was last year when I found out they'd never actually been tested on a woman or with blood, or the fact that they do have toxic chemicals in them. I
A
thought that,
bunch of them. Yeah.
yeah, I thought the toxic shock syndrome, which I think maybe every woman is aware of, is a thing.
hmm
I thought, oh, that's because I left it in and the blood is the toxic thing. I
Hmm.
didn't realize that it's from the materials that they're teaching
In
us
it.
to put in our bodies.
In your body. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's so funny. My mom, I mean, it's not funny. It's not funny. I don't know why I say that all the time.
No, I get
That
what
is a
you're saying.
colloquialism and it is not true. It's not funny. However, I was always hyper aware of toxic shock. My mom had it and was
Very.
hospitalized. Yeah. From tampons. And so and it's really sad. I've always known what's in them, but I have incredibly heavy periods. And actually I will say like over the last 6 months, I feel like my body's finally regulating a little bit without birth control. The only thing is now my periods are not always consistent. Like I'll go a month without one,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is for all those other autoimmune things that were mentioned. But I have to use tampons. And so just because of how often I'm going through, but I've made a conscious choice to switch over to, a different brand that is
Yeah.
hopefully supposedly what they say they are.
Have you
Um,
tried a cup? That's what I use.
I haven't. I've always been so afraid. And I know I have multiple friends tell me, but I'm just so scared that like something's going to go wrong with it. You're not going to seal it properly or whatever.
I was really
And
nervous. I'll send you the link to the one I use, but I've been
yeah.
using them for 5 years now.
Oh, wow.
I bought one. I got a new one last year because you can use it like 3 to 5 years. Around 4 years, I was like, I like a new one. It's fine.
Yeah.
I want a new one. Um,
Yeah.
but it's surgical, like the surgical rubber. It's
hmm
been tried. It's tested that it can go in your body.
Yeah.
Silicone. I
Yeah.
think it's something like that. It's medical grade silicone or something. Um,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to last 12 hours. So
Wow.
what I did when I first started using them, also while I'm getting used to how to use them, is I just made sure that the day I was ready to try it, I think I bought it and I think it still took me like 3 months before I was ready to try it. But when I was
Yeah.
ready, it was there. Um,
Yeah.
and because it's weird to be like, I gotta try a new thing, and like it's a thing. It makes you
Yeah.
nervous. And
Yeah.
it took me probably my first cycle to actually get used to it.
hmm
Um, but I
Yeah.
love it. It works out
I've
really
heard
well for
really
me.
good things about it. I really have. I mean, the other thing that I've been like trying to switch to so that I'm not using tampons as often is like what's that brand called? Knix and Thinks,
Mm-hmm.
KNIX, and the Thinks brand, they have like underwear that are specifically for periods.
Mm-hmm.
And so like on my lighter days when I would have used a like lighter tampon, I'm using those and then you just wash them.
Yeah.
Um, my other thing, like this is so again, this is not eco-conscious and something I need to be better about, is like I won't I like that I can have like multiple things stashed in multiple purses
Mm-hmm.
and bags always where like, okay, if I get a cup, I have to have that thing with me. And now I have nothing else and I forgot it or something like that. Like I have a surprise period that I wasn't expecting, like, oh God, I need to have this in and I don't have it, you know?
That's
So
not a thing for me.
yeah.
Because of the birth control, I know exactly. I can usually be like, and I've got about
Oh, that's
2 days
crazy.
before this is going to happen, so I can be a
Wow.
little more prepared. But keep in
Yeah.
mind that, like, you can still have a tampon in your bag for an emergency.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Yes.
me, my brain just says it's all or nothing. And that's
Yeah.
like, again, my own little weird issues that I
No,
have to
no,
work
I
through with.
think it's totally valid. It's called Nix It. So I don't know if that's
Mm.
period underwear as well, but it's the cup I use. And then if for
Oh,
you it was
maybe
like,
so.
yeah, if you're worried, why I would
Hmm.
consider
Use both.
doing the cup and a period
Hmm.
underwear so that you have a
Yeah.
catch-all and you feel more comfortable. And like I said, if you
Yeah.
can manage it, a day where you're not expecting to go somewhere.
Hmm. Yeah. True.
But I do it, like I said, because it's eco-friendly. And then I looked and I saw what was going on with tampons, and I thought, oh my gosh, thank God
Yeah.
I moved away for a different reason. I didn't even think about this, but thank God I did.
Hmm.
It's it's one of those things that, like, it brings it back to what we were talking about with, like, autoimmune diseases and just women's
Yeah.
healthcare in general, that they just decided this is the solution. Why are they
Hmm.
dipping tampons in arsenic?
Yeah. It's insane.
Why is that a thing? Why was that ever a thing?
Right. I know. And why it's allowed still. We all just know about it.
I it's one I We know about it, and it's one of those things where it's just like, what can we do? All we
Hmm.
can do is change the product we're using
Right.
to maybe another brand. But I don't think in terms of tampons there's really a brand option
Hmm.
that's going to work out. So it's one of those things where it's like, and this is how women are treated.
Yeah.
And it's very
Totally.
frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Hmm.
But I think having even small conversations like this between you and I helps younger women know what's already around, what's happening, so that maybe they can make a different choice sooner in their life. And also letting any woman know it's not just you.
Yeah. Hmm.
We're all dealing with these things.
Exactly. Yeah. I just think the most interesting like part of that is somewhere down the line, it's like periods are shameful. We don't want to see it. Here, plug it up with this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just our thing. That is what we've all used ever since. And it's along the lines with this, the birth control thing. It's like we were just told to do this, and that's what we have done always. So
Yeah.
now we're older and there's more information coming out and um which I'm thankful for. So yeah, just kind of trying to play around with what is the
Good
right thing.
for you,
Hmm.
because every person's
Hmm.
body is different. Because,
Right.
like, a lot of
Right.
people, they do actually do well on Depo-Provera, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I didn't. And that's the thing, is I feel like in medical practice, they treat, hello Lucy, they treat
Hi,
women like women is one thing, instead of remembering that we too are humans who are complex and have all these different things, right?
hmm
And I think that that's something that's just woefully forgotten. Like, I don't know why tampons came about. I preferred them over pads because I didn't like feeling that, like,
the
bulkiness and the,
bulky
like,
wetness. Yeah.
yeah, it, like,
And again,
you
that's, I
feel
think, a
so
product that
dirty.
wasn't developed all the way. Like, I think that they've come a long way probably from what I've seen. Like, they look a lot thinner now and like they can absorb more. But like, I am turned off from them from using them back when they were this big and this long and had
Yeah,
wings. And I know that they still make them, but I do think that they've started to develop that technology for pads to be more comfortable.
because they weren't.
Um,
It was so uncomfortable, and
yeah,
you
it
felt
literally
the
was a diaper
dirtiest you've
lining.
ever felt.
Yes,
Like,
so gross.
just
Ugh.
if you had to pee and then, like, had to keep that one
Yeah.
on, if that was the case, like,
Ugh.
your day is
Ugh.
ruined. And on
Yeah.
top of that, like, oh my god, I wanted to use tampons from the get-go because I didn't like that feeling. And in
Yeah.
my household I wasn't allowed to because I wanted them, and I was told, do you want this to be what takes your virginity? Like that's a thing. And so
Yeah.
for me, it was shameful that I used tampons, and I didn't even get to until I was an adult.
Mm.
I had to
That's,
stick
yeah.
around wearing a diaper very
Yeah.
uncomfortably
Right.
with my incredibly erratic periods that were so painful because of the cysts. Because
Oh God, I'm sure.
I was a late developer. I didn't even get my first one until I was 14 and a half. Got it coming home from Disney World. So that is the end of your childhood just all the way around. You go to
Yeah.
Disney World and you get your period and you're done.
So
Um,
poetic of you.
Sarah, yes, I'm very, very poetic about it. But then I didn't get another one for like a year and a half.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
Oh,
for me,
that's
birth
crazy.
control has always been kind of this thing that helped me be in control of my body in a way. Like I don't
Yeah.
have the doubling over, from the cyst situation, but also I can know when it's coming now. And that was
Yeah.
not a thing for me for a couple of years where it would just be like, could happen at any moment. And I'm in high school, so wouldn't that be terrifying,
Yeah, that would be so great for me.
It was
Yeah.
stressful, and because especially when we were teenagers, because I think we've made a lot of inroads lately, especially with certain social media like campaigns and being able to share information. But while we were in high school,
You
periods were
didn't talk
still
about it.
shameful and gross.
Yeah. You did not talk about it.
No, so
I remember though, you remember those old school trapper keepers?
mm-hmm.
So I was very early. I had my period at like 10 years old, and my sister did not have hers until like 13, which is still fairly early. Maybe that's right on,
I
but
think
I was
13, 12,
really,
and
really
13
young.
is on.
Yeah, I was really, really young, and like no one even knew what it was. Luckily, I think my parents had told me about it like probably 4 months before. So I kind of knew. I happened to be out in New Jersey visiting my single father who did not live with a woman at the time. So he took me to a male doctor, which I was so worried about. Like I had never even been to a doctor at all
Mm-hmm.
for something like that. But he was nice and fine and was like, "You're on your period." Because we swore, I made my twin sister look. I was like, "I swear I have a cut down here," and she swears to this day she saw it too. Like I was like, "No, it's not the period. There's something else going on too." I don't know if we just didn't want to admit that I was on it or what was going on. But my dad took me to the doctor. Um, I don't know where I was going with this because now I'm just lost in the memory of how kind of wild and funny that is that I happened to be at my single father who was doing his best place, but like, oh my gosh, I suddenly have to deal with this girl and her period. Um,
Well,
I
10 is
can't remember
really
where I was
young.
going. It's really young. It's yes, yeah. And I mean I had them very regularly up until I got on birth control. So I wasn't using tampons obviously at that young of an age. Like I was terrified by the concept.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then yeah, I would say I didn't start using them until I was probably 15, but it's just so interesting, like hearing you talk about birth controls, like it gives you control and like you feel like it helped you with predictability over your body. I feel the very opposite about it, that like I had no idea what was going on with mine. I just didn't have periods for 6 years while I had an IUD. I had cramping, which I still do, and that was what prompted me like, okay, there's obviously something wrong with my hormones. I want to get clean of everything so that my body can try to do its own thing and I can start tracking stuff. And that's why I say I think the symptoms have always been there, but I'm paying more attention to them now because I don't have the mask of the birth control making me feel better or what I thought was normal for half of my life.
Adult life, yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
no, I take the pill. So that's like low
Hmm.
dose. I
Yeah.
legitimately am in control. If I forget to take it, for 2 days, I'll spot immediately.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's
and
true.
so it's one of those things where for me, it's very much so about me knowing exactly what my body's up to. Because
Hmm.
having one here and one there was very stressful,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden incredibly painful, and mine are still decently, I get wiped out. It's basically like I'm sick,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know
Yes.
um
Hmm.
my cramping isn't horrible compared to like the stories I hear, but I know that like it's not, um it wouldn't be manageable by the whole population.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's one of those things. for me, I'll get the headache, the really bad one, like deep in my brain, and I'll get nauseous and kind of dizzy, and my
Hmm.
stomach will be completely weird. And
Yep.
I needed to have that happening at a time that I knew that was going to happen,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Hmm.
Instead of it just being like, hey, it's picture day and you're having a weird day, like that's terrible and terrifying. And I'm
Yeah.
not ashamed of it. It's just like, I'd like to know what's going on. Right. And now I'm an
Yeah.
adult woman. I'm not in a sexual relationship and I haven't been in a while, but it's one of those
Hmm.
things where I liked to know this will be a week that I can do things and this will be a week I will not be doing anything, and I
Yeah.
plan my schedule around it
Yeah.
where I'll be like, I don't do interviews. I don't tell people I'm going to write with them. I'm not going to make a social plan because I won't be social. I'll have no personality. Like I have a lot of personality naturally. And
Yes.
then when
Yes.
I'm on my period and someone will talk to me and I'll be like, "Have you always been this stupid?" And it's not even that I'm mean. It's just that like the energy to tolerate
It's
things is
different. Yeah.
it's gone. It's gone.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll notice it immediately. I'll be like, oh, it's coming, because even though I'm on the pill, I can feel it in my body when I need to stop taking it. Legitimately, I feel it in my breasts. My breasts get
Yeah.
really so tender that I always, as soon as I have the thought, oh my god, is this cancer, because my breasts hurt really bad, I'm like, oh, you need to have your periods been
You're,
checked
you
first.
know what this is.
Yeah.
You know exactly
But
what
it's
this
every
is.
month. It's like we all forget.
Yes.
I always love when you see
Yes.
those little posts and it's like I'm crying and I'm upset, I'm angry and I don't
Oh,
know
I
what's going
know.
on every month, just those 2 days. And so for me, my body physically starts to hurt, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it'll once it hits my breast, I'm like and then I go, "Oh, right.
You're
Wait.
like, I know what's happening.
Never mind."
No,
And
it's so funny. We were well, I was at a girls' night with some friends that I hang out with every so often, and one of them had an aura ring on, and I have been looking into getting one at the time, and I was like, is that an aura ring? They're like, yes. And I'm like, well, what do you think of it? They're like, it's amazing. It tracks my period to the day. Like I know exactly when I'm going to be on it. And that for me is like wild. So that is the main draw for me. And anyways, they were like, it also has a partner sharing. So like the app, you can share it with your partner and be like, Casey's gonna be on her period today. And so they're like, it's nice he's come home with chocolate and all that kind of stuff, knowing that it was gonna happen. And I was joking and I'm like, yeah, we have the partner sharing app too. I just start a fight the week before my period, like a really intense one, and I cry a lot, and Nick knows I'm gonna be on my period
yeah.
the next week.
I've not heard
But
of
I did get the ring actually. I did get the
Do
aura
you
ring.
like it? I've not heard of that. I don't know what this is.
So, yeah, I realized I forgot to put on all my rings, even my engagement ring. But, it's funny. I
Interesting.
actually have, this is gross, but I have this like part of my autoimmune lately has been like eczema all over my hand, like
Okay.
really uncomfortable. And so I'm not wearing the ring as often as I used to. Um, just because it's size specifically for like a bigger finger, and I don't want something on when I normally have my ring. I just don't like it on my left hand. It's like really large.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. It is like very accurate with the period thing for the most part. Last month it thought I was going to have one, and I didn't because of other stuff, but it basically is a sensor that is like taking your body temperature and figuring out your cycle out over a couple of months. And so it like tracks that for you and literally tells you you're ovulating now, and it's been really accurate for that.
And that's the
And
only
also
purpose is hormone tracking?
no, so it also like tracks your sleep. Like whether you're in deep sleep. And sometimes it's not right. Like I think it's going based off of your heart rate and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll notice it is red when I have bad sleep. And so I'll wake up in the middle of the night and it's like still thinking I'm asleep. And I'm like, no, 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 I'm awake. Like wake up. But for the most part, it's really good for
Interesting.
that as well. Yeah. So and it tracks your steps, which is kind of fun. Because I have an Android, I don't have an Apple Watch, and I have like the Michael Kors smartwatch for it, but it is not accurate at all. And I think the jury's still out if it's accurate with step count or not. But
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting.
yeah. Hmm.
The partner sharing kind of makes me nervous because, once Roe v. Wade happened and how it men
I know.
can be, it
Yes.
makes me very nervous because I'm not saying that I'm not going to say that that man is that way, but there are men who would be that way, who would check and be like, "Oh, she's ovulating. I could get her pregnant."
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
purposefully be pulling stuff like that.
And you don't have to partner share it. Like I don't partner share it because I just feel like he doesn't need
No,
to know
I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying that
if you
that
do the
that not even if you
implications.
do, if you have a partner who would do something like that, they're probably a partner that's controlling whether or not you get to share anyway. They've probably decided you're sharing. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's kind of an easy way to just take someone's medical information.
Yeah. And I think the other part of that that people have with period tracking apps in general, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, it was just a thing that you were seeing everywhere is like, be careful if you have this because, and again, I don't know how permissible it would be to use in court. I don't know. I guess if they are charging you for murder of a human, if that's what it ever gets to all the way, then I guess everything is permissible.
Yeah.
um, but that being said, I do remember it being a question of how safe is it for us to even be tracking our periods at this
Right.
point? Because yeah, and so I hear what you're saying. I mean, fortunately, I live in Colorado and my sister lives in Alabama, so I think it's always wild when we kind of discuss the differences. Colorado's like super progressive in women's rights and all of that stuff, as progressive as they can be. I still think we're all behind. But they're pretty progressive with some of that stuff. And Alabama obviously is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, for the court thing, it's very scary to do period tracking. If you're in a relationship where you're being controlled in some way, which is abusive, like
mhm.
someone else knowing that information on you can be
Yeah,
scary.
yeah,
So
I'm
just for
sure.
anyone who like is considering stuff like that, like think about that because I'd prefer to not have the ring at all, you know,
Yeah,
and then be like,
yeah,
there's nothing for you to track,
right.
which is nice. I think it's all about your circumstances, and I know that that's like a dark way to think about it, but like that was the first thing I thought is I was like, oh, some man could take that and use that to their advantage in some way or another.
Yeah, yeah.
Or like you had one last month where it thought you were going to have a period and then you didn't. Could you imagine if
Mhm.
that happened and then he
I know.
was like,
Why? Yeah, why
are you
aren't you having your
pregnant? Is
period?
it someone else?
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
dangerous. And that's one of those things that I feel like, is the technology cool? Absolutely.
Hmm.
When you actually think about it and what that technology could do, what any technology could do,
Yeah,
is it safe? And
yeah.
did you ask a woman? Because you told me about it, and that was the first thing I thought.
Hmm.
And I've never even been in a
Yeah,
relationship, like a romantic relationship, that was that way, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
But I know that that's a thing. And that was my first thing is I was like, oh, that could be scary for someone. And I think that we
Hmm.
forget what the world is actually like for women when we're creating things.
Yeah. I don't know if it was designed by a woman. That's a good question. I will say I've met so many women who have it.
Mm-hmm.
And for reasons you've mentioned, like obviously if that's then yeah, don't get that. But I would say for someone like trying to get control of their health, and that is a huge portion of it. Um, like I just never know when it's happening. That's the first thing doctors are asking me is when was your last period? How
Yep.
often are you having it? What is your cycle? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. Like who has the time to put this? I was manually trying to put it into my other app before. And so for me, that's been like a huge key.
No, it makes
Um,
sense. I just
yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
bring that other point up because
No, I mean, I totally see what you're saying. Yeah. And hopefully it was made by a woman. I mean that I did not even look into that because all I've heard is glowing reviews from my friends. But
well, and that's because the majority of us aren't going to have to deal with the scary thing I just said.
yeah, right,
It's
right,
not going to
right.
be a thing, but you do have to think about that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
always. You always have to think about that. Because being a woman is scary and like I've gone through some sexually traumatic things and physically abusive things in my life. I feel like I don't know a woman, I don't know more than maybe one or two women actually ever that haven't.
Haven't.
And
Hmm.
so I don't think you're someone who I could put in the haven't list, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Do you want to talk about that at all? Like how old you were when something happened, maybe the first time or ever, or if it's only a first time thing?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think it's a first time thing. I think it's something that in little ways women deal with all the time.
Mm-hmm.
walking down the street, getting unsolicited photos, literally from strangers. I've had it happen with my photography business. Someone's like, I want you to take pictures of me. And I'm like, okay, what kind of session are you looking for? Immediate picture that I'd never asked for or wanted. So like that on a smaller scale happens frequently. I think, there have been instances in college, I don't know, where you're not safe, you're given something that you didn't take, and start finding yourself in weird situations. I'm really fortunate. I had really good friends in college that didn't, have like looked after me in some of that. Um,
You should never blame the victim or survivor, however that individual wants to be labeled. Like for me, I prefer
mhm.
the term survivor over victim because survivor makes me feel stronger.
Yeah,
My first memory, I'm 4. Is that a real memory?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
is this a thing? But I know that I'm 4, and uh, then I know that other stuff happened just throughout my childhood. Like I remember being at daycare once, and a 13-year-old like flirting with me and grabbing at me, and me being fine with it because I thought that that was fine.
Hmm.
And letting him touch me, and I think I was maybe 7.
Wow.
Um, and like full handful of me, at 7
Mhm.
on the playground, and not knowing that that wasn't okay
Normal.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
normal, and not even really remembering it for a long time,
Yep.
you know? And then things happened to me as a teenager a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then once I left home, I dealt with a lot of stuff too. Like I remember when Pokemon Go became a really big thing, and I stopped playing at one point because a guy like came up in his car, and I was walking around and I was trying to just catch Pokemon, and he like stopped his truck and was like talking to me, and I was like, that's great, cool, and like the truck was twice as tall as me, like
Yeah.
on the big wheels, and I was so uncomfortable, and I kept trying to get away, but I also didn't want to lead him back to where I lived, so I couldn't
Right.
go home to where I felt safe, but I couldn't stay out or walk around, and that happens not as much where I am now, but
I'm sure.
every single day I left my house. It happened
Hmm.
every single day I left my house where someone
Yes.
somewhere bothered me, be it a
Yep.
cat call, following me, stopping their truck, whistling at me, asking me
Hmm.
if I want to see something,
Yeah.
anything. And I've
I
not
mean, that
been,
is so often. I feel like most women go through that
it is
and don't
every
even consider
day.
it as a form of sexual abuse or trauma, but it really is micro
We don't consider
aggressions.
it because it happens every
It's so
single day.
constant. Yeah.
It happens
Hmm.
every single day. It happened to me
Yeah.
here where I live, which I don't share, but I went to the gym a couple years ago, and I was going at like 5 a.m. because I was having a hard time sleeping. So I was like, I'll get up and
Yeah.
I'll run
I'm up.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I walked down to my gym, which was a 24-hour fitness gym, and I was on the treadmill, and the treadmills were facing out to the street, which didn't bother me because I was there that early. And I was like, it's going to be great. I'm going to be on the treadmill when the sun comes up, and that's going to be beautiful. And then
Yeah.
this guy comes and starts just watching me from the other side of the glass, you know, and staring at me and like
That's
grabbing at
scary.
me and then kind of like miming what I'm doing. And I called the non emergency number, and they moved him from there and put him on the corner where the front door
Not
is
our
for me
problem
to leave.
anymore.
For me to
Exactly.
leave. I couldn't that's the only reason I hadn't left, is because he was right where the doors were for me to actually leave the building.
Yeah.
And it's 5 a.m. or 5:30 probably at this point. There's no one on the streets.
Right.
And
Right.
so I'm just stuck in the gym, not comfortable enough to actually work out, can't go anywhere. And it's
I
frustrating.
feel like that a lot. Like, I really like going hiking and want to go on walks by myself. And especially having moved back to a bigger city, I, it's funny, like I feel less independent because I'm afraid, of like what's going to happen and what's out there to some extent. I think I try to be reasonable and like, ground myself and pick places that I feel are generally safe. But I mean, you hear about stuff all the time, and just knowing what that feels like and feeling helpless, like I don't know. It's weird. I don't feel like I do as much by myself as I want to and would like to.
Yeah. I feel like I'm incredibly independent. I don't really stop from doing anything. But what I
Hmm.
do is feel anxious the whole time, a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like I live by myself. I travel by myself all over the world, you know. Last year I was in
Yeah.
Vietnam and Cambodia, and there were times where I was just like,
I'm sure.
okay, we're going to walk from here to here and we're going to be fine with it, and we don't speak the
Yes.
language, and we look different than everyone in this area, and you know, it's a little bit like no one thinks that I fit in when I'm there, obviously,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. But even here, like when I walk my dog Domino, I won't walk him when it's really late, because as soon as it's dark, I'm like, it's easy. It's easier to do anything else, and no one's gonna notice I'm gone. You know.
Hmm.
Um, and I went and photographed the super blue moon a couple weeks ago. So I walked to a place because I wanted to get these really pretty pictures. I live near the ocean. Um,
Yeah.
so I was like, oh, this will be great. The moon was in the opposite direction, so I couldn't get like the ocean with the moon, which would have been cool. But like I was, you know, there to photograph, and I got so nervous before I left my house that I grabbed my pocket knife before I walked out,
Hmm.
and just was constantly sending a message in my group message to be like, now I'm here and look at this. And like, at no point did I let on to them that I was nervous, but that's why I
Yeah.
was communicating so much, you know? And I
See,
think this is
and
where
that
we
I
just do
hate.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember being in college and them teaching us to put your key between your
Knuckles.
knuckles, you know, and that way you're ready. And it's like I'm learning that in college. Like I'm literally learning that in orientation
Mm-hmm.
so that I can be safe going to and from classes if it's dark out, which it gets dark early sometimes in the year, you know, and going to and from my dorm to get food or whatever. I just, and that's what I mean. Like I, if I'm going hiking or I'm going to do something by myself, I'm doing that to not be anxious because I suffer with a lot of anxiety um and so that is why sometimes now I'm just like I don't really want to go on my hike because I don't want to go by myself
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to feel anxious. I'm trying to not feel anxious. I hate that. I can't have my headphones in that I want to listen to my podcasts or music or books or whatever because I need to be aware of what's around me at all times. What happens if I go up too high by myself and there's just me and someone around, you know? And you're trying to not be anxious. That's the whole point of it. So
And
I
you're
think,
trying to
and
do stuff
especially
you enjoy.
that I enjoy, yeah, and be physical. And like, I think for me, having moved back to the city, I feel that way more than when I lived in the mountains. So
Yeah, which is interesting because I feel like small towns also make me nervous, you know?
yeah, I can understand that. I totally get that.
I think it's because like I grew up in the country, so I know how country people can be,
Yeah, for
or
sure.
how men can be in small settings
Hmm.
and in large settings. Because I've lived a lot of
Hmm.
different places, is what I'd say. It's not country people, because in terms of like country people, I kind of have like immense warmth, you know. So what I'll say
Yeah,
is like
yeah,
small
yeah.
towns. Um, I
People who
feel
just feel
like
like there's nobody watching all the
yes,
time, like
so it
what
feels a
people
little
will
more
do when they're not
sinister
being
to me,
watched.
you know.
Yeah, I think it can. I think it totally can.
And I think
Obviously, you know where to go in those places that is like
unless you're
safe,
new, but
unless you're
like
new. Right.
then in the city it's the difference between it being like this sinister kind of looming feeling in the country where it's like
It's just
maybe I'm
everywhere.
alone or maybe I'm not, and if I
Uh,
am alone I'm the outsider, so maybe no one's going to listen or care, whereas in the city it's uncomfortable because it's so overt. It's every freaking block a
mhm.
construction worker or a man or anything is going to be yelling about my tits or my ass. You know, I went to
Yeah.
the hospital here 3 years ago, 2 years ago. A little yeah, coming up on 2 years ago for my skin thing, they were doing yet another round of testing for me. And it was an allergy panel. And so I had to wear a shirt that was like flowier in the back because they put over 50 or something allergens on my back, and then each one got its own bandage. By the way, you know what I was allergic to? The bandage. Um which was covering my entire back for 3 straight days. It was miserable. Yeah, I'm allergic to that plaster glue that they put on my skin.
A lot of people are.
I
A lot
yeah,
of people are.
It was
Yeah.
great. It
Again,
was
it's not something that should be on your skin,
yep,
probably,
yep.
but we're gonna do it anyway.
Regardless, I'm having to wear something that's like loose and a little more open in my back because I'm covered in bandages. Around 50 of them. Maybe like 75. I don't remember. It's between like 50 and 75 different things that they put in that were like non-common allergens to see if that was the thing causing my skin problems. And I'm
Hmm.
at the train station and I'm with my ex at the time and he gets really angry and I was like, "What did I do?" Like I'm just kind of and apparently some guys were like hollering and like, you know, being obnoxious about me. And at one
Yeah.
point I was like, "What's going on?" He was like, "Why are you talking about her like that?" Um and they were just like, "Oh, we're sorry, man. We are just thinking that she looked really fine." And he was like, why are you acting like that though?" It was something that like really would get him heated.
Yeah.
Um and he was someone who's like not a heated person. So I think it would also make
Yeah.
him uncomfortable cuz we almost got in a fist fight with these guys. Um
I'm sure. Yeah.
Not him, I did because once I found out
Yeah.
what was happening, I was like, "What is your problem?" And he goes, "You don't want the attention. Shouldn't be going out of the house like that." And it was like, I'm literally dressed this way because I had a medical procedure half an hour ago.
Yeah.
I'm
And
covered.
regardless,
I'm covered in bandages. I know it
yeah.
doesn't matter, but it's even more
No,
ridiculous when you
it's,
think about the
yeah.
fact that like I'm
You've
dressed
bandages
this
on you.
way because I'm
Yeah.
covered in bandages. You just didn't
Yeah.
notice or something because I was further away. And
Yeah.
that guy was like, "You better hold back your ma." And I was like, "Excuse me?" And then he did grab me and he was like, "Let it go, let it go." And I was like, "Fine." Like, because I won't tolerate it. And maybe that's
Yeah.
also a little bit dangerous, right?
Yeah. And that's the hard part too, right? Is like, I mean, unfortunately, I think we're trained to like laugh it off and like, thanks, and like try
It's
to
the
be,
safest way to go about
it's
it.
the safest way to go about it. And so, like, I think for me, it's also been years of just undoing some of those. Like, I usually won't confront those people because I am scared that there's going to be retaliation
Mm-hmm.
um, for advances made on me and whatnot. I'm usually like, ha ha ha, yeah, thanks. Okay, cool, gotta go. I've been in a gas station before where I ended up in a conversation for like an hour with this guy outside who is twice my size, twice my age, just talking about how pretty I was. And it just, he wouldn't let it go and was standing in front of me. And luckily, there were like two other guys that kind of happened to notice that I was there for a long time. And one of them came up to me, like acting like I needed to go do something
Mm-hmm.
and helped me get out of it. But I feel like, maybe saying something is not always the most dangerous thing, but it also is, and you don't know. And that makes me so anxious. And I think that's what I mean. Like moving back to the city is like, there's a lot more people around and interactions.
They're more
Um,
brash in the city. Oh,
oh, sorry, you froze.
yeah, you did. You did too. I said they're more brash in the city.
Yeah, and there's just more population, there's
Yeah.
more chance of encounters. So that to me is scarier, I guess that was what I mean. Like in the mountains, I just have less of a chance of running into people. And there's only a certain amount of hiking within the area that I live in a reasonable distance that is either going to be populated or not. And so anyway, that's what I wrestle with when it comes to going to do stuff that I enjoy
No, yeah.
by myself.
I get it.
So
It's
yeah.
a daily thing where like a lot of times honestly I'll walk out of my house and I want to look as ridiculous as I possibly can.
Hmm.
Just socks that don't match, like I'll wear socks with like slip on shoes so that looks
Me
weird.
too.
And I won't wear like a normal outfit or I'll wear something that looks insane. Like in the winter, I'm wearing a snowsuit almost every day
I love that.
when I go outside because it's not even cold enough for it, but it's like it's not a very good snowsuit, so it's
Yeah.
perfect. So it kind of helps.
Yeah.
Like I live in a really windy place, so it helps the wind
Mhm.
situation. But then I look like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, you know. And I'll put my hair like this, and I'll just be no makeup. I almost never wear makeup, but I'll put my hair like this, like not in a cute bun. That like I'm not a librarian. I'm a peacock, and I don't need to be talked to, And
Yeah.
like I also kind of luck out because I am a little bit bananas just in general. So like if someone will mess with me, I'll be like, "Wait, what did you say?" And like just be
Yeah, you'll scare them.
yeah, but you
They're like,
kind
oh
of
God, never
you
mind.
have to.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have to because I don't want you to pull over your car and show me your penis.
yeah.
I will say
Really?
this.
You
No.
don't?
I've never
Oh,
I've never
shocking.
been looking at a penis and thought, "Yep, that's
That's the one.
that's it. There we go."
Yeah.
I will say
Yeah.
though, I have never received a dick pic.
Oh, that's crazy to me.
I
Wow.
must have just like a vibe that's like, nah, because I have never received one. Now, I haven't been on a dating app in 7.5, maybe 8 years, but
Yeah.
even when I was on them, that didn't happen to me. And now I can't talk to a single woman who's like
Not gotten one.
not gotten one. And I
Yeah. I mean, I've never even been on dating apps and I have gotten them like through Instagrams and Facebooks and just like random, I'll open a message and it's like, oh,
never, not
no, thank
once.
you.
Maybe I'm not very cute. That must be what it is.
You're very cute. And I
Yeah.
don't know what it is. Maybe you're just not online that much. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's just like I said. I think there's a vibe there. Like I don't know.
You just have it locked down. I don't know what it is.
I
It's like crazy.
it's kind of it makes me very proud though because I'm like I don't know why
You're
this
not part of the statistic
I'm
of a
not part
hundred
of
percent.
this. But you know what? Like technically, the first penis I did see was what I would consider a dick pic. And that would be Fight Club. Was I saw that movie when I was like 17, and at the very end, he like has
I love that.
a one flash frame, and I remember being like, "What the hell was that?" And like not knowing what to do because I didn't do anything in high school. Like I didn't even
Yeah.
date. I had my first kiss in high school, which apparently
Yeah.
is late, and I
So
didn't
did I.
yeah, I didn't date. I didn't have sex until I was out of high school, you know?
Wow. Yeah.
Um that was the first time I saw a penis. I think it's Brad Pitt's, right?
That's a pretty good first one. That's a pretty
Honestly,
good first penis to see, honestly, I would think.
I'm not
I
positive
don't
even
know.
what it fully looks like because it literally is a split second thing that he like puts in there. It's like a joke that they make earlier in the film, you
Yeah.
know? And then it comes in right at the credits scene and I remember just being like, "What?"
That's pretty good. That's a great like little shock and then out.
Kind
Love it.
of, but like I think
Love
that's
it.
the closest to a dick pic I've ever actually experienced.
You mean Brad Pitt sent you a dick pic is what I'm hearing.
Oh man, that would be really creepy though if we're thinking about that like age difference wise and all of
Well,
that.
this was years ago. Oh yeah, you were really young
Yeah,
back
we
then.
continue to have the same amount of age difference, Brielle, no matter how much older I get.
But I'm just saying if you watch it now and it's him in that movie, then it's fine.
Now I'm older than him, I think.
Yeah, so it's fine. Now it's like congratulations.
I'm just saying, I think that's the closest. And even with that, I remember being like, oh my God. And I'm just, in case any men watch or listen or read this, wasn't turned on. And that was Brad Pitt at his peak Brad Pittiest. And I still was
Yeah.
just like, pardon me? I think I went and like did the dishes and then probably did like,
I didn't see anything.
like I was so, there was like immediate shame, you know? It doesn't do
Yeah.
anything
It
for
does
me.
not, even from like someone you like, it doesn't work out. It just isn't a thing, I feel like. The way
Mm-mm.
that guys think it is when they receive something, it is not the same. Not the same. It's
It's
just not the
just
same.
not. It's just not.
It's just
It's
not.
it's the difference between someone showing you flower petals and someone showing you just a stem. And you're like, that's
Yeah,
not the part of the flower we all enjoy.
that's true. That was a perfect analogy. I love that. That
Yeah.
is very true.
Well, is there anything else you want to chat about for the interview?
I don't think so. We covered quite a few
We covered
things.
quite a few things. We went through
Yeah.
the trenches, but we also went through like career. We
Yeah.
ended on a silly story because, you know, it's me, so it can't be not
Thank
silly.
you, Brad Pitt, for your service.
I just want to point out that it's not the person who dealt with that who's thanking him. It's
We've all seen the movie.
Do you remember the part I'm talking about?
Yes.
It scared the crap out of me. I remember being like, "Woo!"
But I saw that movie like later in life, so
So
maybe
did
that's
I.
why
I
it's
was
like
like
it doesn't.
17. That's what I'm saying.
But I think I was older. I was like 20.
Oh,
4 or
okay. I
something.
thought you meant later on,
So
like when it came out. Because when it came out, I
no,
was
no, no.
maybe like 3 or 4.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't even notice what happened.
Well,
No.
yeah, no.
Yeah. No, no, no. I was older, so maybe that's why it doesn't register the same way.
I don't know. But I want to thank you for your time, and I'm going to stop recording now.
Okay.
Um, so, okay, we're back because I did almost forget something. So I have 2 questions for you, Breelle. First of
Okay.
all, if you wanted to share one song with the people who will watch this or the people who will read this later, what song would you choose?
Oh gosh, I'm so bad at like having to pick one thing. I guess
Sorry.
I'm in wedding mode right now.
Be in wedding mode. That's
Um
who you are in
yeah,
the
I'm in
moment.
wedding mode right now. And so the song that I am walking down the aisle to is by King Princess. It's 1950,
I
and
love that song.
I've been so obsessed with it, and I heard it and was like, "Oh, this is the song I'm walking down the aisle to." Like, it's so good.
You
So
know it's about lesbians, though, right?
I do know it's about
Okay.
lesbians. I do, but
I feel
like,
like it's a perfect love song, lesbian or not, because it's like I hate it when
yeah,
dudes try to chase me, but I love it
yes,
with you.
yeah, and like
Yeah.
it's all, and I
Because
love the line.
I'm
She's
just
like,
a
"Tell me
little
why my
bitty.
gods look like you," and I'm
Yeah.
like, I understand that that's a woman. Like, I get it, but to me, it's like it's for
I mean,
everybody.
leave
So
it to a lesbian to make the perfect love song for
I
anyone,
know
you know?
exactly. So that's the one I'm walking down the aisle to. But
Yeah.
yes, I do know.
I love that song. Okay,
Yeah, so
and
good.
then my second question. So this will eventually, like I said, be an anthology book, and at the end of collecting all of these articles, or maybe at the end of
Hmm.
doing part one, however it works out, because I'm really loving this, um, will be an interview about me, but where every person I have interviewed gets to ask me a question, and that will make it into my final interview at the very end.
Oh, I love that.
So, what would you like to ask me?
Oh gosh.
And yeah, please take a second because I don't tell anyone beforehand that they're going to get this opportunity because
No, how rude of you.
I also don't think it would make sense because if we've been conversing and then, you have to come up with something random and it'll be like, what's your favorite color? Stupid question. Everyone knows it's pink. Everything in my house is pink, like so I wanted it to be like now that we've gotten to have a talk and you know me a little bit better, what would you want to ask?
Hmm. Okay. I would say I would want to ask you just because personally knowing you also and like some of our conversation today, you mentioned that you prefer the word survivor over victim, which I love.
Mhm.
I would want to ask you as a survivor, not just of trauma, but just a survivor of everything that has to do with being a woman and life. Like, what are you the most proud of that you would tell how old were we when we met? 16-year-old Candace.
Yeah. I was 16. You were younger.
Yeah, but what would you
Yeah.
tell her? What would you tell 16-year-old Candace that you're so proud of now, um, as a survivor that felt so heavy and like unsurmountable then? What would you tell her now?
I would probably, well, the things I've survived, some of those things didn't happen until after I was 18. So there's a
Hmm.
very good chance that I would tell her that things were going to get very scary very soon. Uh, and then I would tell her that it will end up okay. It's not okay the things that happen to you, but it's
Hmm.
you end up okay. And not only okay, but you end up the best version of you possible. And you're going to be angry and you're going to be sad and you're going to want to die and you're going to try maybe a couple of times. And then you're going to hit a point in your life where you're not in a relationship and you don't have very much family, um, but you're the happiest you've ever been because you finally figured out how to put yourself first and how
Hmm.
to not feel shame for the things that have happened to you and to not be closed off and remorseful, but instead recognize that everything that's happened can't be changed. You can't do
Yeah.
anything about it. All you can do is work on how you react and how you grow.
Hmm.
And I would tell 16-year-old me that be as dramatic as you want to be, you know, be dramatic and be cringy and be so intense, and don't change who you are or how you dress or how you talk or anything like that, that a lot of people do make fun of you for right now, because it's who you are. And as an adult, it's everything that you love about yourself and that the people who love you also love about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that. That I would tell 16-year-old Candace very similar things, I think. That,
Yeah. 16-year-old
I
Candace, that was a rough year for me. That was the year I moved to there,
yeah.
and I had had a crush on a boy so intensely, and he treated me really poorly, which was totally fine by me because I had no barometer for how I'd like to be treated.
Yeah.
And so when we were moving because I had a crush on someone, and my dad was so obsessive and insane that that wasn't allowed. So he literally moved us across the state so that I wasn't near him anymore. Um, and it felt like my soul had been wrenched out of my body, and it was unrequited too on that guy's end. Like he told me he liked me, but it was a 17-year-old boy. He treated me like garbage because that's kind of how boys behave at that time. And
Hmm.
I remember thinking, like, my life is over. I don't know, I don't think you know this, but like I was a dramatic kid. I'm still dramatic, but now I'm just not as embarrassed about it. But like,
Yeah.
or I don't do things that are as cringe inducing. Like I'm embarrassed by some of the stuff I did, because when I moved to the school where I met you and your sister
Huh.
and a lot of my current friends still, um, I refused to speak for the first 2 weeks of school being there.
That's so hard to imagine, but I can see you executing that very well.
It was so freaking hard. I remember being like, I will get my point across that I don't want to have any of these friends. I don't want to be around any of these people because this is not where I should be. I should get to go home and be where, my friends were and my heart is. And then I got another crush.
Crazy how that
I
happens.
got another crush, and I thought, this guy's great. He treated me really bad too, but he was my first kiss at almost 17 years old. Um, and and then I started making friends, and like some of my best friends at that time. But
Yeah.
yeah, 16 was a hard year for me. I was bananas.
I love it.
So, yeah.
I love that.
Once again, I'll thank you for the interview, and we'll say goodbye for reals now because